Right, I'll just wait a little bit and then I'll get going for our little mini workshop on Trikonasana. So triangle pose is one of the key poses really that you'll probably experience when you come into a yoga class. But as I said in my post, it's really important to have quite mindful instruction when it comes to doing it, because it's quite easy to, I don't want to say injure yourself, but you can create compression in your back and you can not get the most out of it, basically. I think that's a better way to put it. But when you do, it's an incredibly grounding pose, but at the same time, it's quite an energizing and it's a very powerful pose, really, in a similar way to the Warrior series. But it's also greatly satisfying when you get it. So I'm going to jump up into it. Just make sure you can see my feet. Got a beautiful sun pouring in. So to come into it from standing, if you're doing this workshop right now, the best thing to do would be to heel toe your feet out. If you're pregnant, you can do this pose, but be mindful of 2 wide legs. So any pose in pregnancy, you just want to make it a bit smaller. If you're a more seasoned yogi and you're pregnant, then you can definitely do this pose. If you're not, then maybe stick to more of a pregnancy yoga class. So yeah, heel toe your feet out until you come into a good wide stance, and then take the front foot forward, so pointing towards the front of the mat. The back foot, bring the toes just inwards slightly, so you're almost preparing for a Warrior Two. A really lovely transition, which I'll show you once we've done Trikonasana, is coming from Warrior Two to Trikonasana to Warrior Two and back. It's really lovely and fluid, and you can breathe and flow. And it's one that I often do in my classes. So the foundation of Trikonasana, triangle pose, rooting down into both the feet. So almost a similar starting point to Warrior Two, really bringing awareness to the 4 corners of both your feet. And having your pelvis parallel, so you've got the crown of your head, your chest, your hips, and then you're extending out into your feet. And as you're extending out and rooting down into your feet, you're feeling that rise up. So it's the root to rise. So by pushing down, the only way this will make any sense is if you give it a go. By rooting down, you can use that rooting down to rise up and feel that energy rise up and engage. You really need your leg muscles in this pose. If you're very flexy, just be mindful of your front knee, that you're not hyperextending. It's the muscles that are doing the work here. And then you can bring your arms up, dropping the shoulders, and then bring your awareness to your back hip and kick it back. So really flick it back, flicking movement. As you do that, you can bring your arms forward, really feel that front quads engage, and come forward before you come down. If you try and come down like this, you can see you're not going to get that extension. And what you want to get in triangle is a lovely extension up and over, and then a twist. It's the trunk that's twisting. So it's not the pelvis, it's not the legs, and it's not the knees, because you don't want the front knee to fall inwards so that you're all twisted. Your feet are your legs are your roots, they're your stability. That's what they're creating. And then you're turning with your obliques, with your QL and your psoas. So your psoas and QL are more deep, coming from the spine. Your obliques are, of course, your side tummy muscles. So you're coming, hinging that hip back, coming forwards, then bringing the front arm down, really engaging those quads. And you have options here. If you have a brick or a book, something quite sturdy, you don't want something that's going to that you're going to rest on that's going to fall over, although it's a reference point more than a rest. I should really call it a reference point. You can rest the block down by your foot, hinge, come back, come over, up and over and down, and rest your front hand. When I say rest, it's a very gentle rest. So see that I'm very easily able to lift up with my fingertips. I'm not collapsed down, because you can see if I collapse down, my body draws forward, which makes it almost impossible to then lift, because if I'm collapsed here and then I'm lifting, my body's fighting. Whereas if I just have my fingertips, using that block as a reference, lift my top arm, you can feel, I always use this, anyone that has ever been taught by me, Up, the film, great film if you haven't seen it, love it. Balloons. Imagine your top arm, imagine you've got hundreds of balloons attached to the top arm, so making it feel really light. So you're twisting your trunk and lifting here. So you're lifting up, really engaging the core, grounding down through the feet. And if you don't use the block, you can place your hand on your shin. I mean, you can bring it down, but just be mindful that you're not collapsing forward. So you might see in yoga classes, people going forward and right down and striving to get to the floor, because that's where they think that's the most challenging and they've really achieved the pose. But you can see that you're not achieving the pose at all, because you're not getting the twist, you're not getting the lift, you're not engaging your core, you're just collapsed down. And also my legs are leaning backwards here, so I'm losing my stability. I'm almost rolling onto the outside edge of my front foot. So you don't want to do that. You want to wait, root down into your feet, lift up, hinge the hip back, come forwards, then take that front arm down, rest it on your shin, imagine the balloons attached to your top arm, and lift, 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 lift. And you can come down a little bit further and then lift, 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 lift. And then if you really want to test the old core, bring the arms together here, really zip into the core and really root down the feet, into the feet. And then lift up. And the transition that I was mentioning to you, from here you can come into your warrior two. I'm not going to go into this in detail because I did a little mini workshop on it before. So you can come in from your warrior two into your reverse warrior, and then coming forward, hinging the hip, down into your Trikonasana, inhaling, bending the front hip. So breathing and flowing, exhaling, and down. And then up. You can either windmill your feet down and come through a chaturanga, or you can just heel toe your feet back together, and there you have it, your Trikonasana pose. So thank you for joining me today, and really look forward to next week, which is going to be focused on hormonal balance, which is incredibly important for particularly females. So yeah, really look forward to that, and have a great weekend.